Let's get into Monday Night Raw from May the 5th, 2025. I am MongoSlade. This is 3 Count Commentaries. I'm going to do a recap of Monday Night Raw, which, we shall all enjoy. The show was better than last week, if we're being honest. But that was easy, because last week was absolute basura. We're also going to do a little bit talking about the AAA mess that's going on. There's not much to discuss on that front, but we'll talk about it later. Let's talk about Raw first, because that's what we're here for. We started the show with Jey Uso having a 10 to 12 minute entrance. Jeez Louise. Jesus Christ. He's immediately interrupted by Paul Heyman, who went absolutely nuts. This was the best Paul Heyman promo in forever. He looked like some mixture of Oswald Cobblepot left out in the sun with his face baked. It was amazing. He blamed CM Punk for sabotaging his relationship with Roman Reigns. He blames Roman Reigns for losing the title that he built up. He, being Paul Heyman, built up for 5 years. He says he built the bloodline. He says that Roman Reigns left him to be abused by Solo and the Tongans, and everybody's calling him a scumbag. He says, no, I'm right this time. Then he says that all these things have nothing to do with Jey, but what does have to do with Jey is this championship, which is about power and control, and Jey knows nothing about power and control, and that Seth wants that title. He says he'll fight him anytime, anywhere, and all Jey has to do is accept the challenge. And of course, Jey says anytime, anywhere. How about tonight? Because, babyface. So Paul Heyman essentially accepts it. So Paul goes back, and him and Rollins then cooked up this plan, and Jey walked right into it. And Braun Breaker is standing there, and he needs his hand held through this entire thing, as Paul has to tell him, hey, Seth Rollins beat 2 of the biggest stars in the business, and they prepared for him. While Jey, he hasn't been prepared. He's not even focused. He's thinking about Logan Paul. This was the only mention of Logan Paul the entire night. Logan Paul, who was supposedly the #1 contender for the World Heavyweight Championship, not only is not mentioned throughout this entire show except for this one spot. It is not even mentioned whether they're wrestling at Backlash or not. Hell, at this point in time, I don't even know. I'll probably have to look it up. That's how bad it is at this point in time. Anyway, this is the last time you see any of these people. They disappear for 2 hours, all right? Main event, Jey Uso versus Seth Rollins. Now, how we got here was pretty straightforward. Made a lot of sense. Nobody, I think, expected the title to switch, but it's up to the performers in the ring to sell you on it. And I have to tell you, this match was infinitely better than Gunther versus Jey Uso. Either Gunther versus Jey Uso match. It highlights how good of a performer Seth Rollins is, that he's able to carry Jey Uso to this level of match. And not just that, but even though Jey continued with his very limited offense, he put it in places where it looked good. That's what you need. You need somebody to hold this man's hand and walk him through the match. Hey, we know you only got 3 or 4 moves. We're going to put them here, here, and here. And he still used reused moves over and over again. But the point of it is they were more impactful. And this is, working at a main event level. So I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was one of the better matches of the night, to be quite honest. But you knew it wasn't going to end clean, because Seth Rollins just won the main event of WrestleMania. They're not going to pin him right now. And Jey Uso supposedly is going to be defending the title against Logan Paul, so he's not about to lose the belt. There was a shade of a chance that Seth Rollins might win the title, and they did do a good job of making me think that he would, which, when you're in this kind of situation, that is important. Having enough drama in the match to lead people to think that it could go in an unpredictable way, that's where you want. There was a spot where Braun Breaker gets kicked off. He just has a little distraction of Jey Uso that gives Rollins an opportunity to hit his moves. He even hit a stomp, but Jey kicked out. So that was pretty big. Then we got a bunch of run-ins. Sami Zayn came out there. Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker had a tiff. And people was getting speared. Jey Uso got speared. Sami Zayn got speared. And then, as Seth Rollins is looking to win the title, here comes CM Punk with a steel chair. The match is thrown out because Punk attacked not only Braun Breaker, but he also attacked Seth Rollins. The heels flee, licking their wounds. The babyfaces stand tall in the middle of the ring, except Jey Uso, who is sitting down in the corner. He needs oxygen. Somebody get that boy some help. Let me tell you again, best Jey Uso match in ages. Really good performance from Seth Rollins. The crowd was really into it. This was Nebraska and not really known for being in a very excited crowd, but they were with it on this show. And this match got more of a reaction and more interaction than I thought it would. The CM Punk reveal saves both guys, which made it make sense, even though, yeah, people don't like disqualifications, but in this situation, you had to end this match without either guy losing. That was just necessary. And having Punk return was a great way to do it. It popped the crowd. At the point that the music hit, at the point that Punk ran into the ring with the chair and everything, nobody even remembered that the match was thrown out. So and here's even better, the nice little dramatic flair to it. Punk saved the title, So that's something that you could play with later if you are so inclined. So there's that. Now, of course, in my infinite wisdom, I thought, all right, so Logan Paul is going to show up and save his own title match. Nope. And then I saw Sami Zayn. I was like, okay, Sami Zayn is going to cost Seth Rollins the title. Nope. So they did a couple of Punk fakes there that I thought was very interesting. And I thought the match, again, went over very well. The opening segment was absolutely fantastic. Paul just had a head like a gigantic roasted tomato. And I thought he was going to keel over or explode or something. It was kind of scary for a moment about what was going on with Paul. But hey, that was just him being a badass. That was just him being great. Apparently, Logan Paul punched out Jey Uso after the show went off the air, which fat bit of good that did for them. I didn't get to see it, even though it was on like Twitter or something. Who cares, man? This whole thing with Logan Paul and Jey Uso, it might be a solid enough match. It might be okay. But the unfortunate bit here is that they're not building it up and kind of nobody cares. Like this felt like the big match. And part of that was because it was expected. Everybody knew that Seth Rollins was eventually going to chase the world title. For them to do it in one night was intriguing. But now that you've done it in one night, and now that it's happened, you have taken Seth Rollins off of the championship track and put him on the CM Punk track. So, and obviously Braun Breaker follows him. So those two are doing that thing, which begs the question, after Logan Paul, what's next for Jey Uso? Because I assumed that Jey Uso would beat Logan Paul and then Seth Rollins would be next. But apparently they're going to continue the feud between Punk and Rollins, which makes sense. I mean, they've been feuding since Punk showed up in November of 23 when he showed up. They've been feuding the entire time. They have not had a blow-off match yet. And you got some pay-per-views out there that could use them at the top of the card. Especially, Saturday night's main event as well. So you got some shows where you could use a big match between Rollins and Punk. So it makes sense. Of course, it seems like Rollins will have to win those matches since that will put him back on the championship track. And then he'll probably have to come off again to deal with the Roman Reigns situation. But the Logan Paul thing is an afterthought. It's such an afterthought. They shot the angle after the show went off the air. And he didn't do anything but punch him from the crowd and walked off, pretty much. Come on. Come on, man. You could at least put a little bit more spice on this. This is a disaster. Everybody's going to look at this thing and say that Logan Paul is a step down from Seth Rollins in terms of title contenders. Already a step down from Gunther. But it is what it is. And then Seth Rollins, Jey Uso hanging with Seth Rollins it makes Jey look really strong. So you don't really think he's going to lose to Logan Paul. But whatever. Penta defeats JD McDonough. I'm sick of the Judgment Day. I'm sick of them. Carlito and Finn Balor were ejected from the match. Chad Gable showed up, tried to distract Penta. He failed. Hey, Chad Gable won his first championship. Well, his first singles title. Well, technically it wasn't him. It was El Grande Americano when he won the Speed Championship earlier in the night. Joyous occasion by one and all. Anyway, he was back to interrupt this match. And it looked like JD McDonough might actually win. But it didn't work. And Penta hits the Mexican Destroyer, the Mexican Destroyer, in order to win the match. I can't believe somebody actually got beat with that move. Unreal. Match was solid. I still feel like it was too long. Next, we go back to the Judgment Day locker room because, always the case. AJ Styles botched his line, basically started over and wanted to wrestle for the Intercontinental title after Penta gets his shot this Saturday at Backlash. So they added Penta versus Dominic Mysterio to Backlash. Okay, I like that. They've already done that match, but I like it. All of a sudden, Dominic Mysterio is saying being champion is too hard for him because he's got to defend the title and do all this stuff. He needs Finn Balor's help. Finn Balor knows AJ Styles. He needs him to handle that problem for him. If Finn Balor is not happy about this whole thing, doesn't want to clean up behind Dominic, but agrees to do it anyway, the Judgment Day have been teetering on breakup for 2 fucking years. 2 years. They've been teetering on breakup for 2 years. This is not good. They have been dragging this thing out so much that when it finally does happen, nobody's going to care. They're not ending any angles on this program, by the way. This Judgment Day thing cannot end. It will not end, ever. Speaking of things that have not ended and will not end, Grayson Waller is oiled up and backstage because he's got a match. Then he hears who his opponent is and decides that he don't really want the match. He says, hey, how about Theory take it? Austin Theory just walks in like a big old dunce. It's like, sure, I'll wrestle whoever. Who's the opponent? Grayson Waller won't tell him. And Adam Pearce won't tell him either. And nobody tells him. So he goes out there and stands in the ring only to find out his opponent is Sheamus. Not quite the Undertaker, not quite Psycho Sid, but Sheamus is he's not a walk in the park. There's no strolls through the river walk on this one. Sheamus and Austin Theory have a solid match where Austin Theory got his ass kicked because of course he did. Nobody even knew who Sheamus was because they changed his theme song. So when I heard the theme song playing, I'm like, who the hell is that? It wasn't until they did the old lights turn off and the lights turn back on thing that I realized it was Sheamus. I'm telling you, they got to do something. They got to go back to the more recognizable theme songs. It's one thing to do the Def Rebel shit for some of the new talent, but when you have a talent that's been around for a long time like Sheamus, go back to what makes them immediately recognizable. Why wouldn't you do that? It just seems stupid not to do that. Throughout the match, Theory was pretty disgusted. Feelings was hurt that Grayson Waller would do this to him, even questioning him. Why would you put me in this situation? Doesn't do him any good. Grayson Waller gets hit with a brogue kick. This match went on probably too long. And Sheamus wins the match clean. Sheamus is, how old? 42, 44, something like that. Austin Theory's not even 30. He's still doing jobs for Sheamus. And we still got Grayson Waller and Austin Theory arguing and beefing amongst each other. We've been doing this Grayson Waller, Austin Theory tease. It's been at least a year. It's been at least a year where they've been doing this, where Grayson Waller have been tricking Austin Theory into doing stupid things and making him look dumb and making him look bad and getting him beat up. And it should not take anybody this long to figure out he's being fucked over. Even somebody with brain worms would have figured it out by now. How is Austin Theory so incredibly stupid that he can't manage to figure out that Austin Theory has been screwing him over for a year? It's so stupid. It's shockingly stupid. And of course, I've already said it. Old guy like Sheamus beating a young guy like Austin Theory. It's time to do something with these guys. These guys, both of these guys, talk about Theory and Waller. If you're not going to put them in a tag team, they're not going to be partners, then they need to be feuding. If they're not going to feud, then we got to do something. They can't be stuck here with this concrete around their ankles as long as it's been there. It's been too long. All right? Too long. Does Austin Theory not watch the show? Did he not see that Grayson Waller is scheming for his downfall? It's ridiculous at this point. It's ridiculous. But the saving grace for this is that it looks like they are going to put Sheamus in the chase for the Intercontinental title again. So him beating Austin Theory kind of has a purpose. You know, it serves the dual purpose of furthering the angle with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, but also furthering Sheamus's pursuit of the Intercontinental title, as they kept mentioning that during this match. And this match popped up right after Dominic Mysterio. So it kind of tells you that Sheamus is in the picture now too, which is good because I think ultimately that's the crowning achievement of Sheamus, is finally winning the Intercontinental Championship. So we just have to spend a lot of time getting there. We got a lot of horse shit with the tag team titles. No, I don't care. I'm not going to go over this. I'm not going to pay this any attention. The tag team division in WWE has been shit all over. It's worthless. It's New Day. It's the Creed Brothers. It's all these guys. I don't care. I straight up don't care. There's nothing happening. I don't care about the War Raiders. Nobody does. Nobody cares about these people. Moving on. Becky Lynch is in the ring. She says that she's not the bad guy. All she did was take out the trash. And Bayley is the trash. And everybody cheered when she took out the trash. And she says, you don't boo people who take out the trash. You cheer them. You say thank you. Then she says that Lyra is the recycling because she is also trash. Because he says her attitude is garbage. She called her garbage. She called Bayley garbage, which was hilarious. She says that without her, Lyra wouldn't have a career and she wouldn't have a decent love life either. Lyra Valkyria came out. She's still wearing Skechers or something like that. She looks like a tomboy hanging out, during 12th grade or something like this. She says that, speaking of recycling, Becky Lynch has been doing the same gimmick for years. I was like, that was a good one. That one skipped across the river, I can tell you that. I was like, shit. She says that Becky Lynch didn't make her, and that when Becky left, everybody got better, and it was Lyra who made history. Becky says, of course everybody's careers got better. I wasn't there to compete with them. And she says that it wasn't her job to help anybody. It's her job to beat everybody. And beating people, she's very, very good at her job. Lyra Valkyria got in the ring. Says as long as she's there, Becky Lynch better get used to second place. And they got to brawling. It was terrible. Very bad brawling, as usual. But Lyra Valkyria was getting a lot of the offense in, just throwing Becky against the barricade, kicking her, knocking her down, making Becky run away. I know you guys I know a lot of people into that Becky Hogan thing, but Becky winning that belt. Oh, Becky is getting that belt. Because she ain't, outside of the initial heel turn, she ain't done nothing to Lyra since. She getting that belt. And it's the right move to make, too. The angle, as they're telling it right now, is that, Becky is basically a human shovel. They're doing a similar thing with Becky that they've done with John Cena. They basically blame her for everybody else not being good enough. She's stunting the growth of the women's division. She's selfish. She's, taking opportunities from other women, all this sort of stuff. And it's what has been buzzing on the internet for a long time. And this is one of those things where, they're trying to take things from the internet and put it into storyline. And, of course, they're doing it concurrently with doing it with John Cena, which makes no sense. But it's something. And Lyra Valkyria needed something to sink her teeth into. And I think even though this feud has been extremely microwaved, meaning it happened very fast, I like it. I think that Becky is doing a really good job as a heel. The only issue here is when Becky says things like she's the best, and it's not, her saying it, it's Sports Illustrated saying it, and all this sort of stuff. The fans believe that. Usually when people say they're the best and they're a heel, the crowd disagrees. When Becky says she's the best, the crowd agrees. So, like, yeah, Becky, we love Becky. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Lyra Valkyria to remain a babyface in this situation. But Becky's doing a good job. Attacking Bayley, who is not there, gets her some pretty good heat. Being a coward, running away, gets her some pretty good heat. But I think Lyra has really grown on the mic. Like, she feels comfortable in this role. She's the aggressor. She's not a stupid babyface. When she does anything foolish. I think she probably tweeted out something like "Don't meet your heroes" or something like that towards Becky. I hope she's doing a really good job here, and it seems that there is a fire in Lyra Valkyria that we hadn't seen before, which is a good thing. Always good to see characters growing. I would like to see her dress better. I don't know if I want to see her in like jeans, shorts, and Skechers. I don't know about that. You look like you were in high school. Bird lady, dress up a little bit. I don't know. Roxanne Perez and Io Sky have a hell of a match on this show. Just one hell of a contest between these two. I'm not going to give you a blow by blow, but if you're into the women's wrestling thing, this whole thing was very good. Roxanne Perez targeting the leg, which plays out throughout the match, except for when Io has to do her emote, which, involves double kip-ups, so she's going to do that. Which was hilarious, is she did her emote and then sold the leg. Okay. The crowd loves Io. Everybody seems to love Io. She's super over, which no doubt is why Dakota Kai doesn't have a job anymore, is because she doesn't need a voice anymore. Has anybody noticed that? When Damage Control needed somebody to talk for them, it was Dakota Kai. But now Io is super over just from wrestling, which is very rare. And, it's very rare for somebody, especially a woman, to get over just from having good matches. In the WWE, I should say. And you don't need Dakota Kai anymore. They don't even use vignettes to get over Io anymore. They used to hide that she couldn't speak English through vignettes. They don't even do that anymore. They just send her out there. She gets amazing pops. And she might show Hayes slap somebody, and that's it. And that's pretty much the entirety of the goddamn thing. And that's charisma. It's personality. Roxanne Perez is trying very hard. Her heel persona is still not clicking with me, but she's a really good in-ring technician. They do a series of roll-up pins, which actually ends up with Io Sky getting the pinfall victory. Roxanne Perez offers the handshake. She looked good here. She looked strong. She didn't lose to Io's finish. It looked like she just got caught up in somebody who's a better wrestler. She shook her hand out of respect. and left the ring. And then Julia assaulted Io Sky from behind, and Julia, along with Roxanne Perez, decided to jump and beat up Io Sky. And it became obvious to me at this point that Julia has taken Cora Jade's spot. Yeah. It seemed to me like that's the issue here. Nobody can really explain why these two are partners. And the explanation is obvious that it was supposed to be Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. That was supposed to be the team. And then at some point, they realized we're getting rid of Cora Jade, so they just replaced her with Julia. We're just going to get rid of her, and we're going to replace her with Julia. And I wonder when that was. When did they make the decision to just, we're going to swap out Cora Jade for Julia, and nobody's going to notice, even though everybody noticed? Because there's no reason for these two to be friends. Like, outside of mutual respect and equal dislike of the same person, there's no real reason for these two to be buddies. And yet here they are, good buddies, introduced together too. So it's pretty obvious to me at this point that Julia is wearing Cora Jade's gym shoes at this point. But the match was great. Unfortunately, the women's championships are not being defended at Backlash, neither one of them. So Io Sky will not be there, and Tiffany Stratton will not be there, at least as far as we know for right now. Who knows what they add between now and then, but Io not having an opponent is weird. Tiffany, if she is going to have an opponent, it'll probably be Nia Jax, wouldn't it? Ugh. Yikes. But at least, Becky Lynch got on the show. So, no Rhea Ripley, no Bianca, no Tiffany, no Charlotte, no Io, no problem. At least you got Becky. Be happy for Becky. And Bird Girl. That's what you got. All right. Rusev defeated Otis. This match probably gave Otis a little too much, as Rusev sold a lot for him, especially sold his strength and his size. That's really what they kind of wanted to get over, is that this was a big boy, situation where these two big guys are rumbling against each other here. And Rusev got to show some athleticism. He did a spin kick and a standing drop kick, and people were like, ooh, we forgot you could do things like this. So Otis did a back suplex on Rusev over the table. That was pretty crazy. But ultimately, obviously, Rusev wins with the accolade. After the match, Akira Tozawa gets in the ring, and I'm screaming at my TV, why are you still here? Of all the people that I forgot this guy was even here. He is the modern day Funaki. You know how Funaki just happened to just be there every day and nobody said anything? Like, what exactly do you do here? You don't wrestle anymore. You're not SmackDown #1 announcer anymore. What do you do? Now he's like a producer or something. He does like Japanese commentary and a bunch of stuff. Like the guy's been there since like 1997. Like, is that going to be Tozawa? Is he grooming Tozawa for his spot now? Because there's no reason for Tozawa to still exist in the WWE universe, in anybody's universe, at any point in time. Why is he still here? Anyway, he shows up and rips his shirt to challenge Rusev to a fight. And this actually got a decent reaction from the crowd. I guess that's why he's still here. And Rusev backed off, actually. It was like, you know what? Enough of this. I'm done with this. And then he ran back and beat up both of them, put Otis in the accolade again. And Adam Pearce himself had to pull Rusev off. And I say to myself, man, this is what you got this guy doing. And I understand you want to reestablish him, but this is what you got this guy doing. And you got goddamn, oh my God, you got Pat McAfee in wrestling in a featured match on a pay-per-view. And you just got back Rusev, who is a killer. But we've been down that road before. What road we haven't been down before is the Pat McAfee versus Gunther face-off thing. Absolutely phenomenal promo from Pat McAfee, with the exception that so much of it was bullshit. When he started talking about Nebraska football and Nebraska steaks and nobody beats this state's meat, I'm like, what the fuck does this have to do with Gunther? It's got nothing to do with Gunther. It's got nothing to do with the match. It's got nothing to do with anything. Ultimately, Pat McAfee's point here is that both him and Gunther grew up watching this business, grew up wanting to be in the business. But for Gunther, it's a job. For him, it's a privilege. And that he feels jacked up and excited every time he comes here, while Gunther is jaded and over time has gotten soft, which is incredibly offensive to call a man like Gunther soft. If it wasn't for Adam Pearce being there and saying that there can be no physicality, I would say Gunther should have ripped his head off and kicked it into the stands. And he probably should have did it anyway because he called the man soft to his face. So then Gunther says that Saturday is going to be a very special day. And Pat McAfee has just got him in the mood because he's going to have his full undivided attention. As Pat McAfee says that Gunther is unfocused. And he said, you're going to have my full undivided attention. I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to choke you out and let you drop like a wet towel. Then he says, only the grace of God will lift my arms from your throat. I thought that was a great line. It shook Pat McAfee. He sold it well. Even after Gunther left, he seemed concerned. And that was a great segment. You know, they should have done something similar with Logan Paul and Jey Uso, but I don't think Logan Paul has that second gear where he can be as angry as Gunther was here. Gunther was angry. He was offended, which, you know, that this guy would even try to fight him. And to be quite honest, I would have preferred that perspective from Gunther, especially since his character is about how the mat is sacred and all that kind of stuff. He really should be beating the drum that Pat McAfee doesn't deserve to be in the wrestling ring. Like, he hasn't done anything. He's not a wrestler. He's defiling the ring every time he gets in it. That really should be one of Gunther's major points. But they made it personal, which I guess is better. I will say this, though, and I'll be very disappointed if it doesn't happen. I'm expecting blood here. I'm expecting that Gunther is going to beat the shit out of Pat McAfee and make him bleed and send Pat McAfee home for at least a month. I don't want to see Pat McAfee for most of the summer after this match. I want him to come back in July, you know, with, you know, a black eye and, you know, tape all around his head and everything. Gunther needs to do this man dirty. I'm talking, he needs to do this man bad. He needs to do him bad, you know. Otherwise, he does look soft. You know, he got to kill this guy. But McAfee is a great talker. Sometimes he just rambles, though, and he goes off subject. And I think the whole thing about Nebraska and meat and corn and all that shit and college football and Little League, World Series, or whatever the fuck he was talking about, it distracted him. And even in matches, he gets distracted sometimes. Like, I think in the main event, he was talking about the Knicks game. And I'm like, what? Who cares about the goddamn Knicks game? Focus on the goddamn match. But he can't help it. I think he probably got some kind of undiagnosed ADHD or something like that. As offensive as this match is to me, I'm intrigued by it. Only because I do want to see how it's going to work out. I'm not a person that's really a mat humper. Like, oh, what kind of match is it going to be? Is it going to be a great 5-star classic? I'm not even thinking about it from that perspective. I'm expecting a massacre. I'm expecting Gunther to, you know, take some offense, but to spend most of the match just absolutely destroying Pat McAfee and leaving him in a bloody heap, because I want to know what's next. And I'm guessing, just a random guess, that somebody is going to come to Pat McAfee's aid in this match. And more than likely, that's going to be Gunther's next opponent. Some people have said Bill Goldberg. I laugh out loud at that. Raw was less eventful, but still, it was a solid show. Some really solid in-ring work between Jey Uso versus Seth Rollins and Stephanie Valkyria versus Roxanne Perez. And even Rusev and Otis. didn't do too bad. Hell, even McDonough versus Penta didn't do too bad, even though I think that match was a little long. But in the ring, they did a solid episode of Raw. Not enough angles for me. Not enough stars for me. Even next week, they have not announced a Cody Rhodes, a John Cena, a Randy Orton, or nobody major for that show. I think the biggest star they've announced already is Rhea Ripley. And she's going to be stuffed in a tag team match with Julia, Io Sky, and Roxanne Perez. So they're keeping up this tag team stuff, and this is Roxanne Perez's introduction to the main roster, I suppose. And I'm not sure if Julia's coming up fully or not. It making it seem like she is, so I don't know, but the show was better this week than it was last week. That's the best I can say. All right, let's talk about this AAA thing before we wrap it up. All day on the internet, people are running around yapping about Alberto Del Rio getting a new WWE contract. And some other individuals apparently have also gotten contracts, one of whom being La Hydra. We're going to talk about that one second, but we're going to talk about Alberto Del Rio first. So what is happening is that because WWE bought AAA, there's a bunch of contracts that have to be honored, at least for right now. And WWE is going to start assuming some of these contracts over the course of time. Now, this deal will not be complete until the third quarter. This is what I'm seeing on the internet. So I don't know for sure. Obviously, I don't speak Spanish, so a lot of the details that might go over my head. Also, there has been some complications due to how the contracts for not CMLL, but AAA wrestlers work, and all these sorts of clauses and different things, and that WWE doesn't usually have. Ultimately, however, there's Alberto Del Rio, for the time being, is a WWE superstar and will be getting paid from the WWE to work these shows in AAA until they completely take over, which won't be up for a while now. It'll be a couple of months. We're still in the first quarter, if I remember. It might be near the second quarter right now. So everybody lost their mind because Del Rio is, technically speaking, a WWE superstar, even though he'll probably never wrestle at all in the United States. And some fans have even stood up and said, look, this guy's a hero in Mexico. He has zero convictions against his name. He's never been convicted of any crimes, even though he was accused of some really crazy crimes, one of which was like kidnapping a child. He was also accused of abusing Paige. I think it ended up coming out that Paige is the one who abused him, but he did it, they were doing drugs and they were drinking a lot and there was a whole lot of stuff going on. But there's a lot of people who hate Del Rio, and he's a genuine dickhead. I mean, there's just no other way around it. There's just no two ways about it. He's not a guy who WWE should be paying money to. But as many who follow Lucha Libre and me who watches AAA occasionally, I can tell you they have built a promotion around him. He has been the star of the show for like the last 2 years, at least. So how do you phase this guy out? You can't just snatch him off, as bad business as just remove him and then damage this new property that you just bought because of your political opinion or the political opinions of some people on Twitter. That literally just doesn't make sense. You don't want to damage the viability of this product that you just bought. You do so they may require them slowly but surely phasing Del Rio out, which they're going to have to do, and probably replacing him with some of the guys you already have under contract. Your Andrades, your Santos Escobars, maybe even Rey Mysterio or Dominic or somebody like that, as a way to slowly but surely send Del Rio on his way. I do not think Del Rio will get a traditional WWE contract where he's going to get the big finger point from Triple H and get welcomed back into the fold. I don't think that's going to happen. I think when you look at just his history of the last 2 times he's been there, which is weird because a lot of his supporters are like, oh, he deserves a second chance. Second chance? What do you mean second chance? He had 2 runs in WWE, one of whom he slapped a writer in order to get fired. He was involved with all sorts of domestic disputes with Paige. Just recently in Mexico, he got suspended from Tijuana because he got into a scuff with like some fans. This dude is a terrorist. All right. Now, you cannot have this sort of drama on your resume, even if you don't have any convictions. You do have a lot of disciplinary issues, some of whom are still recent. Okay? Like, there's been plenty of guys who have been fired from jobs over misunderstandings. All right? I think Rhino and maybe Drew McIntyre, guys like that have been fired from WWE over misunderstandings. They were able to get their job back over time because, it was a one-off, shit happens, and people get over it. But with Del Rio, it's a consistent thing, and then some of this stuff is really, really bad. You can't, even if he's going to stay in Mexico, even if he's never going to wrestle in the United States, it's probably not a good idea to have Alberto Del Rio on your roster. But he is the AAA Mega Champion, and he is the guy that they have been building their promotion around. So you have to figure out how to remove him from that space without damaging what has been a successful business. AAA's business is not bad. Conan takes pictures of the full buildings that they run for television and all that stuff. And you have to figure out, hey, Del Rio is a draw. How do you remove this guy that is worshipped in Mexico? Do you just say, well, it's Mexico, which, you could do when AAA was independent. And then you could just say, like, it's Mexico. Nobody really cares. You don't have to watch it, whatever. But now that it's under the WWE umbrella, it kind of matters. Like, these things matter. So we'll see how if they'll bend the knee to the woke mob and get rid of Del Rio. I'm even going to put myself on the side of the woke mob this time. I don't want Del Rio back. And I don't even hate him as much as everybody else does. I think he's a solid wrestler, solid charisma, probably overpushed during his time in WWE. But I don't hate him as a performer. I think he sucks as a person. And I think that there's so much stuff on his name that it just doesn't make sense to bring him back right now. Now, another one of the people that was mentioned was La Hydra, who is the very bottom-heavy Mexican female wrestler who frequents AAA. She is supposedly been offered a contract, or she will be offered a contract, however that's going to happen. And she has issues with Stephanie Vacquer. This goes to Cuatero, the guy who attacked Stephanie Vacquer. La Hydra was dating his brother. And apparently she wrote a letter to some people, saying that Stephanie was making things up or something like that. And Stephanie Vacquer sued her. And so now they've got this whole thing going on between the two of them. And there were, I used Google Translate to try to figure out some of these stories. And it turns out that the lawsuit was supposedly settled last year, but who knows? But ultimately, the idea being both of them are female wrestlers. She is, I don't know if La Hydra is married to Cuatero's brother or that's just her boyfriend. I don't know. It's lost in translation. Who knows? But she knows the guy. She knows has a good relationship with the guy who attacked her. And she's one of the people that have been on his side, I guess. And so she's in a tight jam. So she put out a tweet saying that she's basically going to focus on her job and then let karma figure out the rest. I don't know if I'm assuming Stephanie Vaquera is a bigger star in Mexico than La Hydra, even though, Stephanie Vaquera is Chilean and La Hydra is really Mexican. I'm almost certain that Stephanie Vaquera will be a bigger star in Mexico. So do you really need La Hydra? You don't. She might be nice to look at, and she is. She's especially the bottom half. But hey, in a pinch, you might want Stephanie Vaquera to be your AAA Women's Champion and make her, hey, you want to come wrestle in Mexico and, fill some of these buildings, and people might be interested in that. Do you want to run the risk of La Hydra being there? Like, no. And they haven't squashed the beef? No, not really. But also, do you want to increase the heat by saying, look, I'm not going to bring you in because of Stephanie? Then, shit, she might not be safe in Mexico anymore. Because who the hell knows what might happen if you dash somebody's dream, especially if, and it's expected that the pay is going to increase once WWE fully takes over, that these people might be getting paid more money than they were before. And she loses her job because her and Stephanie have issues. Hell, she might have Stephanie kidnapped or something like that. You never know what the fuck's going to happen in Mexico. All right? So, it's a tricky situation. And I think roster management is a very important thing here. And plus, Mexico is filled with all sorts of unsavory characters. There's a bunch of unsavory luchadors down in Mexico who have been involved with a bunch of other dumb stuff. Not just these two. There's other ones too that might be floating around there. So it's a questionable thing. WWE has already started announcing some SmackDown and Raw stars for Triple Mania. They have announced Alberto Carrillo and Angel Garza. There's no doubt going to be more that are going to be added to the Triple Mania card. So it ought to be fun. And also, they're going to do Triple Mania, supposedly just WWE, AAA, and TNA. So they're building up this huge triad of talent sharing and a bunch of other stuff going on here. But you got two people at least that you want to put question marks near La Hydra. For Alberto Del Rio, you need to write his name on a sheet of paper, draw a line through it, fold it up like an airplane, and toss it into a burning building. He does not need to be under contract, period. Okay? It just don't do it. It's not smart. All right, like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you folks later. Peace out.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They distort, so question as if you worship.